What's up guys, Sebastian here with Walker's Vintage. Today we'll be comparing 3 different Fender Stratocasters from 3 different countries at 3 different price points. We'll be comparing 4 different aspects from each guitar. 1 is going to be the sound, 2 is going to be the playability, 3 is going to be the specs, and 4 is going to be the overall value that each instrument offers. So right here I have the middle price model. This is made in Japan. Then in the lower end of the price scale we have the Mexican made Player Series Strat, and then in the higher end made here in the USA, the American Professional 2 Stratocaster. Looking at the middle price guitar is the JV60s Modified Strat. What I like about this guitar is that it offers features from both a vintage and a modern guitar. It's kind of an interesting guitar in that sense. You have things such as the V neck profile, which is kind of odd for a guitar that looks like it was made in the late 60s or early 70s. Fender really did this in the 50s, if anything. But regardless, it's very comfortable. You also have a 9.5 radius with medium jumbo frets and this satin neck profile. You have a vintage style 6 screws tremolo bridge, as well as vintage style tuning machines that are actually locking tuning machines. It's a really nice feature. Vintage style Japanese made pickups that sound a bit more scooped and with less output. I feel like this is probably the most vintage sounding one out of the 3. And then finally this really cool feature, which is a push-pull pot here in the bridge position, that what it does is that it engages the neck pickup when you're in this position. So you can run both pickups in the same time and get really cool telly sounds. So comparing the sound of this guitar out of all 3, this one is perhaps the most vintage sounding one. It sounds very scooped, like I said earlier. It has that classic Hendrixy tone. I feel like if you have an amp like a Marshall or a Vox, which tend to be a bit more mid-forward, you're really gonna enjoy playing this guitar. The lower output makes it so that you get a bit more dynamics out of your playing. You really might not be able to push your amp as hard with a guitar like this, but if you enjoy using fuzzes or overdrive pedals, then this is definitely going to suit you really well. The playability is fantastic. I would say it's probably my favorite out of the 3. The neck feels really good, although the edges are not rolled, unlike the American Professional 2. It still feels really nice. I'm a huge fan of V-shaped necks, and this one just comes set up from the factory perfectly. You can really fly on this neck, and it's amazing. I think that as far as value, it's a great instrument. It sells for $12.99, and it's right smack in the middle of these 2. I feel like if you want a more affordable instrument that has slightly more premium features, definitely look at this one. You're not gonna be disappointed. Now, looking at the guitar on the lowest end of the spectrum for the price is this Mexican-made Fender Player Series Stratocaster. This is a guitar with a lot of hidden potential. I find that this gives you a really good bang for your buck, but definitely there's room for improvement here. So diving into the specs, you have a 9.5 radius fretboard. It's a maple fretboard. The neck is satin on the back, not the smoothest satin, but also very comfortable. You have medium jumbo frets here, and maybe this is the one thing that will be left to be desired the most out of this guitar. The fretwork is not the best out there, but I think that that's an easy fix. If you're willing to spend a little bit more extra money, you could definitely get some work done on it and improve the guitar quite a lot. Otherwise, it's not really a big deal, but it could definitely make it feel more premium if you were to invest that extra. The hardware that you find here is the Mexican-made hardware, which I find that it is stable. It's not the best out there, but it'll definitely get the job done. The bridge is this 2-point tremolo system that I actually find it very smooth, and it happens to stay in tune pretty well. There's nothing fancy with the electronics here. It's just a standard 5-way switch for the Strat with this Onico 5 Player Series pickups. These pickups sound pretty good. They don't sound really vintage. They're a bit more compressed. They have a bit more output. That's a personal choice there if you like that sound or if you like the more vintage aspect of it. The one thing I wish these pickups had is a bit more dynamic, just a little bit more touch sensitivity. Other than that, I feel like they're great. If you just want to drive in your amp with just your guitar and no pedals, definitely this would be a great guitar. The wood of this body is alder as compared to basswood in the Japanese-made Strat, and also, well, alder in the American-made Stratocaster. However, I find this piece of wood to be a little bit heavier. Something that I've noticed in the Mexican-made Fenders is that There's quite a lot of variety in the weight of the guitars. I have found some that are super light and some that are really heavy. This one happens to be right on the middle, but that might be something to consider before ordering yours. Just try it out before if you can, and if you like light guitars or heavy guitars, we'll make your decision based on that. Overall, I think that is a guitar that offers a lot of bang for your buck. If you're willing to spend a bit more extra money, you can really get close to what some of these other two guitars offer. But in the meantime, if you were to just keep it like that, you will also be just fine. So yeah, it retails for $849. Definitely check these out if you're looking for a low budget instrument that has a lot of the specs of the higher end models in the Fender catalog. So in the higher end of our comparison today, we find this Fender American Professional 2 Stratocaster. This is the one priced the highest out of the three guitars that we'll be looking at today, and for good reason. There's many specs on this guitar that just take it up to the next level. Let's start out by talking about this neck. This is a maple neck. As you can see, it has the deep C profile, as Fender calls it. It's a satin neck, and it's not just any satin neck. In the back, it's actually super smooth. Fender calls it the supernatural satin. And even though it's satin just like the other two, it's much smoother than the other two guitars. What makes this neck for me is the fact that it has rolled edges. That's a spec that you typically see in vintage guitars, and it's something that naturally happens as you play the guitar. You naturally wear the edges of the fretboard, and for many players, including myself, that's something that makes the playability much better. You have a 9.5 radius with narrow but tall frets, and actually the fretboard of the guitar, it's lacquered versus, again, the satin finish of the back of the neck. The hardware is, well, American made hardware for this guitar. It's very stable, very consistent. It keeps tuning really well. This is an upgraded 2-point tremolo with a cold steel block. The electronics on this guitar, they're very interesting. Just like the Japanese Strat, you have a 5-way switch with a volume and 2 tones, and in the lower tone pod, you can engage the neck pickup whenever you are in any position that involves the bridge pickup. What that does is that it allows you to have many different sounds that you typically don't find on a traditional Strat. You can have almost like a Telecaster neck and bridge sound, and then have all 3 pickups at the same time in the second position. These are the V-Mod 2 pickups. They are more modern sounding pickups that have all the chime that you typically find on a classic Strat sound, but with extra articulation, a bit more compression. I would describe the sound of this guitar as record ready. It has a lot of compression, and it just sounds really good recorded from the get-go. I like the slight extra output that it has. Personally, I just like vintage pickups a bit more, but that's just a personal preference. I would think most players would be just as happy with this sound. Another cool feature that this guitar has is this recessed heel here in the back, which really makes the access to the higher frets much better. It plays really well in this area. You can barely feel the heel at all. The guitar is finished on a polyurethane finish, and it's an alder body. It comes in many different colors with many different options for aesthetics. I would say that this guitar really leaves not a lot to be desired. If I really were to get picky about it, I would say that it would be nice to have an option where I could maybe have a nitrocellulose finish while still keeping this neck, you know, this profile with this feel, and maybe the option of choosing between different pickups, not just the V-Mod pickups, but maybe something a bit more vintage voiced. Other than that, I think it's a great instrument, and for good reason. You can tell why it's placed on the higher end of the price scale. You really get what you pay for. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier is that this is the only guitar that comes with a hard case. I would say that overall, all these guitars are priced very fairly. I think that a lot of the differences in price might be because of, well, which border they were built on. For example, the Mexican Strat, with a few extra $100, you could really modify it and get it to play close to how this one is. If you like the more modern sound, definitely consider the Mexican or the American made. The Japanese is a bit more vintage, but those are things that you can change. You can swap pickups in and out. As far as the stability, the Mexican is probably the least stable one. The way it comes from the factory, it definitely needs some work. If you want to skip all that, then you can just go ahead and get the Japanese. I find it to sound fantastic. It plays really well, is very stable, and it costs a few $100s less than the American made. This is a fantastic instrument that you're definitely paying for a guitar that is made in the US. If you really appreciate the extra premium features that this one has, definitely go for it. You're not going to be disappointed. Regardless, whichever guitar you get, you'll be just as good. I'll be running this 3 through the Fender Hot Rod Deville. It's a 212 combo that has both a clean and a dirty channel. We'll be mainly using the dirty channel. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison. Let us know in the comment section down below what you think. Let's go ahead and try this out. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to find out more about these guitars, the links will be down below in the description. I would love to hear what you think about this comparison. Let us know in the comment section down below. Please visit our website for more information. If you have any questions, email us at info@wildgracevintage.com and follow us on Instagram for more content at @wildgracevintage. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and giving us a thumbs up. My name is Sebastian. Till next time.